Hi, everyone, and welcome to Baka Bitches. We are two 30-something-year-olds who enjoy drinking and discussing anime. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Hannah, and we'll be watching Ouran High School Host Club. And just fair warning, we will be watching this as a dub and not a sub. Don't come at us. Other disclaimer is that there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, pause and watch the episode yourself and then come back and listen along. We will also be going over explicit content and we'll probably say some pretty explicit things, so listener, beware, and it's to your own discretion.
We hope you enjoy. Pour yourself a drink and join us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Baka Bitches. We are two 30-something-year-olds who like to drink and talk about anime. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Stephanie.
And
tonight we have a super fun drink.
What is it?
If you can't tell.
No.
Super fun. It's called a kamikaze.
Yeah.
So it is 2 parts vodka, 1 part orange liqueur, 1 part lime juice.
And it's so good.
It's just a rinse and repeat of like any random alcohol you have, but just using the same ratios.
Yeah, and I like the creativity.
We've done it different every kamikaze we've made tonight.
And we're like...
We had 2.
Yeah.
And then our third one was...
It was a lot. I made that one, and it is an experiment of different things.
But I feel like both of the kamikazes were slightly altered versions of a kamikaze.
Yeah.
But the formula has still been the same.
Very much so.
But it's still been a quite lovely drink each time.
How dare you use my words against me?
Do you know what? Lovely is lovely. It's been a quite lovely drink each time.
Honestly, Stephanie, with you, it's been a lovely evening.
Thank you. All right, what's our episode? So tonight we are in episode 10.
10.
A day in the life of the...
A day in the life of the Fujioka family.
Okay. I didn't have it all written down.
I got you, fam. I'll read the synopsis. Tamaki awakens from a nightmare in which he sees Haruhi living in poverty. He enlists the others and they go to Haruhi's apartment where she resigns herself to letting them in and serving them tea. When Honey asks Haruhi to prepare lunch, they prepare to go to the commoner's supermarket.
Oh, God.
As Tamaki lags behind to pay respects to the shrine of Haruhi's late mother, he and Haruhi exchange a moment of empathy, but he trips and falls on top of her, making a bad first impression on Haruhi's father, Ryuji Ranka Fujioka, as he arrives home from work. Later, Ryuji reveals that he is a professional transvestite named Ranka and has been in contact with Kyoya ever since Haruhi became a host. Haruhi is thoroughly annoyed and goes shopping by herself. Ryuji and the host stalk Haruhi, and though Tamaki tries to impress Ranka with his appreciation for Haruhi, Ryuji refers to him as the enemy.
Holy shit, Hannah, that was a mouthful.
It really was.
How did you do that?
Magic and drinks.
I'm reading along with you, and I'm like, every time you keep continuing with a name, I'm like, glad you can pronounce it. And then I just visually move on.
Honestly, like, no joke, I know this is like an on-running joke, but I really did do Hooked on Phonics as a kid. And like, people like fucking back on it.
This is the first time we're joking.
Yeah. But, like, in general, people, like, fucking bag on it, right? People are like, oh,
Only from
hooked
the
on
90s.
Pihonics were good for me. And, like, legit, that has helped me so much. And, I mean, maybe not so much when I'm, like, pretty buzzed like I am now. But, yeah, it's helped. It's helped in my general sober life. For sure. And
The
I know...
kamikazes is getting to you.
It really be hitting good. So, you know, it's gonna be a good episode, I think. We're gonna do this. This is much better than the previous episode where we had the Lobelia girls, if you remember. I had a rage boner with that one. I could have gone on.
At least you had a boner. Mine was just like so shriveled inwards into like my entire body. I don't think they're ever gonna drop.
Yeah, fair. You know what? I mean, you know what? Someone has to have a rage boner, and someone has to just
Have
not
a
have a boner at all for
An
that one.
internal.
But this is not what this episode is about. This is about we see in the actual private life of Haruhi a little bit.
I love a good private.
Yes, a little secret life
I love to see
of
private.
a Japanese teenager.
Oh. I don't want to see Japanese teenager private. Please
But we
don't
did.
DM those to us.
Yeah, no, actually,
We don't want
do not.
to see Japanese private.
I didn't mean it that way. I just meant like the general life
Hannah
outside of
doesn't
school.
know what she's talking
I'm
about.
Panicking.
She doesn't mean it like that.
I don't mean it. I take it back. That's not what I mean. It was a riff off the Secret Life
Wow.
of the American Teenager.
Trying to
Remember
rip off
that
what?
show? It was a riff, you know.
No,
off
I
of
know. I just want you
like
to be
a
ripping
joke.
something off.
A joke of remember the ABC
I
Family
remember.
show? the Secret Life.
I watched the entire season.
Did you?
Twice.
Whoa. No, I couldn't make it that far. It was
I
so
watched
cringe.
it all. I was very committed. I'm here for the cringe.
It was like
The
I definitely
cringier,
kept
the
watching.
cringier it got,
But I don't
the
think I
more
finished.
invested I was.
Fair.
Like the worse the characters got, and the more they
It was
deviated from their
bad.
character arc, I was like, I'm here for it.
I was like, I can't remember how many seasons that show had, but I remember
It was
going
like
in.
7.
Okay, I was probably like season 5 deep, and I was like, okay,
She's,
this
like,
is a little
almost
much.
there. Yeah.
Almost there, but it was a little much because all of a sudden the mom who was very straight
Became
ended
lesbian.
up and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but there was no inkling, there was no hint.
Yeah.
This is just absolute garbage
But
in the
she
writing.
also had to deal with that shitty father for so long.
Fair.
Okay,
That
it's
was a
neither here
really
nor
bad
there.
father.
It's
That
a
was
different rants.
yeah,
for
that's
different podcasts.
Yeah, that's our new podcast. Oops. That's gonna be our new podcast where we just go
Hannah
through
flips lids off of Stephanie's alcoholic
and
beverages.
flipping tables passionately over scripted American
Scripted
TV.
American TV shows. American sitcoms.
Yeah. I have opinions
American-
about everything.
Drama sitcoms.
Honestly, you could put me in a podcast about just about anything, and I would have an opinion about it.
Yeah, as long as you've seen it. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like that's most of us. As long as we've seen a thing, we can formulate an opinion about it.
Sure, but also at the same time, they're not going to come in hot like I do. Because they are all like, let's be politically correct and let's make sure we don't offend anyone. I'm here for offending people. I'm here for it.
Yeah, okay. So for episode 10 here
Yes.
of
Let's get back on
Ouran
track.
High School Host Club.
Yes.
I feel like I was mostly of that opinion where I'm like neutral. I'm
Sure.
watching it.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is. I mean, some of it is outlandish, some of it's outrageous,
but
but
what's
like,
new?
but I'm here for it until we
Mm-hmm.
get to a certain point
Sure.
midway through the episode. So let's kind of run through this one by one. I know you gave the synopsis, but let's tell
Let's
our telling
Break
of how it goes down. Of the main
baby.
points.
Yes.
Okay, so we first enter the scene.
Yes.
Tamaki is in the middle of having a nightmare we find about Haruhi and how she lives her life.
Yes.
Which initially, us as the viewer, we're led to believe that this is actually happening.
This is real life.
Until it becomes over the top, where like her whole life is like chipped bowls.
Yeah.
Not enough food.
And the house is gonna practically fall down on top of her.
Yes, it's falling on top of her.
It's a shack.
Plus the fact that everything is like she's so apologetic and kind of uncharacteristically like herself.
Yes.
Still her same like kind, gentle spirit, but very much more like, senpai, sorry. I'm so ashamed that this is like my life. Which is not quite like her.
No.
And so then Tamaki wakes up. We all find out himself, us as the viewer. This was his nightmare.
Yeah, he was just dreaming.
She doesn't really live like this.
No, but he had fear installed into him.
But
that's the reality.
We gotta go visit her.
We gotta.
Like, verify.
Yeah. We gotta make sure she really isn't living in a shack.
This ain't her life. Let's go verify.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I will say that I like this episode because of how I think maybe there is that disconnect of really rich or well-off people do view people in middle class or quote-unquote commoners, because really Haruhi is living that middle class life. She is in a apartment that she lives in with her dad, which obviously she does because she's a minor. And it's still, perfectly spaced for those two living together, right? And it's
Correct.
Not anything...
For two persons of a normal demographic.
Very normal.
Not rich, not poor.
Right.
Standard.
Comfortable.
Yes, comfortable.
And so she's just living her life happy for the most part. And just, outside of school, she's living her life. She's apparently taken on the role that her mom would have taken on, who had passed away, sadly, because, what anime doesn't have a dead parent eventually? But she's doing chores, she's cooking, she's taking care of the household outside of school.
Anime Cinderella.
Very much so, but also not abused. She's more than happy to do it because her dad is still working to pay the bills. But, she's still leading a pretty normal life because, when I was that age, I still had chores to do, cleaning up, vacuuming, cleaning windows, sometimes cooking the family meal, because those are actual life lessons for us, quote unquote, commoners that we got to do.
Wow. You have to cook a meal.
I know. So hard.
Once every week or two.
I know. It's
hard being a commoner. I have no idea what
commoner
this is
teenager.
Like. I'm just kidding. I cook like 3 meals a day.
Every day, by the way.
Really funny.
Yeah, so, she's just living her life. And so it's very prominent that Tamaki has this quote-unquote nightmare of her living in this practically dilapidated building. And she's like, since you guys have come and visited in this nightmare, she's like, I starved myself for 3 days in order to afford this supermarket sushi that I bought you guys. And, in his nightmare, she's just thin, like her cheeks are sunken in, and she's just like, is this what fancy tuna is? And, so I like this episode just because it makes sense that Tamaki, this is his nightmare. because he doesn't understand really what the quote-unquote commoner life really is versus the life that he's been living forever. He's lived in the lap of luxury, right?
For so long.
Oh my gosh.
His entire life. He doesn't know anything different.
No. And so this teenage boy comes in thinking that Haruhi's life is a nightmare. Right? Which is crazy. It's crazy. Because it's not, commoners do not just live in hovels, as he said, that is about to just fall over on top of them any given moment. It's such an insane thing, but I feel like it's an accurate presentation of what I feel like the rich see of us quote-unquote commoners. You know, like they think that, oh yeah, they do live in shacks. Oh, they do struggle that much that they have to, starve themselves a couple of times a week in order to get a decent meal and save up.
Probably in comparison to that, it's true.
Yes.
You know, for someone who's that rich, who's like, I'm only going to eat caviar.
Right.
So I would rather starve myself than eat, like, this free-range salmon that you've caught.
Right.
In lieu of this other thing that I feel like is better.
Right.
So, I mean, makes sense.
It makes sense.
But, like, for the normal viewer, you don't necessarily agree.
It's out
with
of touch.
the understanding that, like, the normal viewer is not the 1% watching this anime.
Right.
The majority of viewers are going to be, like, the 90% working class.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Not the 1%.
And that's why we think it's so ridiculous.
Well, yeah, and I feel like it definitely lends to that, especially when you consider that this is the 90s and it still feels over the top watching that.
It's not the 90s, but yes, go on.
Knowing that it's like over the top for that time frame, and we're watching it now still feeling like it's super extra.
I mean, 2006, at least from, I'm trying to think. I'll use kind of vague thing. But my parents own their own company. And I've worked for them for about 13 years. But my mom has always said, like, when the economy crashed in 2008, she got inklings and saw patterns that a recession was coming in 2008. And she saw those things happening in about 2006, 2007. And she was like, oh yeah, something's happening because work is slowing down. People are trying to save their money. And it was a really hard time for my family. It was because they own their own business. Like, they had to lay people off, and it was just both my parents working this business in order to keep afloat. And they would eventually sell jobs, and they would have to make the product, and then basically the next day put the product into customers' houses. And so it was back then in 2006, it was still kind of tough. So, like, yeah, that gap of the rich and well-off versus the quote-unquote commoners probably did widen at that point. But it wasn't to the point that it was maybe in the anime. I don't know. But, I don't know. It's something to think about. But anyways, we should probably move on. So, Tamaki has this nightmare, and in a panic, he's getting dressed, and he runs down the stairs of his really nice mansion, like mansion, where he has like at least 4 servants in there. And he's like, chauffeur, prepare the car. I'm late for school or whatever. And the main head mistress was like, yeah, you idiot, don't go out there. You have pajama pants and house slippers on still. And he's like, oh shit, and as he runs back up the stairs comically. And the house mistress is like, he's not the brightest bulb in the shed, more or less. He's a fucking idiot.
No, yeah.
And
But truth, we all knew it.
And he runs down and 2 seconds later, or not even. And he's about to go through the door and she's like, oh, but wait again. It's actually Sunday, right? And he's like, why didn't you tell me, blah, blah, blah.
But also fair, why didn't you tell him? Isn't she paid for this?
She is, but she makes
She's
a
just
valid
having
point.
fun. She's just having fun.
Yes, that is half of it. I think she's just fucking around. But the other half is that, she's right, that if she did everything for him and told him every single thing that he needs to do, he wouldn't learn anything.
Does it really seem like he's learning anything?
No,
anyways?
the sweet baby angel just cannot think for himself at all. He's struggling to rub those 2 brain cells together in order to make a single thought. So, he's like, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, well, if I did that, like, you wouldn't learn anything for yourself. And my job is literally to make sure that you're on the right path to becoming a great, fine young gentleman. And in order to be that, you need to think for yourself. And I'm like, fair. Because in society, we don't have people that really think for themselves anymore, let's be honest. So he's like, okay, since I had this nightmare, it's a Sunday, which is literally in Japan the only day that high school students usually have the day off. He's like, okay, I'm going to make use of my time. I need to confirm that Haruhi is not living in a shack in poverty. And so he gets on the phone. He demands one of his servants to get the phone, and it was a corded phone, like old-timey phone set, which is wild. Of course it is. It's wild. And
the rich are always super frugal.
Are they the... Well, I guess some of them. Most of the time, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So he gets his home phone from the 1800s. And he calls up Kyoya. And he's like, yo, bro, I had a nightmare. We need to go to Haruhi's. So get your ass over here. We're going to go together. Because he cannot go alone. Apparently.
Right. Obviously.
And our precious boy Kyoya, my favorite boy, was such a sweet baby angel. And called up the other guys at the host club to tag along. And I love this because obviously the twins are here for it, because I believe they have full-on crushes on Haruhi as well. And, Honey Senpai and Takashi.
Yes, you got it.
You did.
I didn't even remember. I was just going to be like the tall one who's like a tree.
Yeah, the tall, silent type tree, rustle the leaves, whatever.
I love
I'm here
him,
for it.
tall and muscular like a tree. Doesn't say a word.
So hot.
Daddy.
Daddy. Okay, yeah, that's for the Patreon.
Mine's not. Mine's free.
Yours is free. Mine's
free for any daddy.
Daddy. No, honestly, if there is a sugar daddy that is listening to this, I am available to be a sugar baby, and I need you. Anyways, I'm shameless. It's fine. It's fine. Mommy needs to pay some bills. So anyways, the whole gang is there, and they get a couple cars in, and they go to, quote unquote, the commoner area of the city. And they park in front of poor Haruhi's apartment building. And she's just trying to live her life. She's getting groceries. She's super excited for having gotten things at a discount or on sale. Because as commoners, we use coupons and we shop sales to save money.
Wow. What peasants.
I know. I mean, you know what? If that's the peasant life, like, okay, I'm a part of the problem. Because I will shop a sale.
Why pay full price for asparagus if you don't have to?
Right. That's my thought exactly. Like,
yes.
I mean...
Also mushrooms. Let's talk about the mushrooms for a sec.
Mushrooms. Well, that's a little bit later. A little bit.
Okay,
just a
let's get there.
Later. Yeah, I know. I'm probably going in too much detail.
No. Let's do it. She's shopping.
She's shopping. She come back and she sees fancy cars in her neighbor's around set of cars, which honestly aren't that fancy in my opinion. They're like fucking a Toyota Corolla or something. I don't know. But apparently in that neighborhood, it's fancy. And she's like, what is this? And her neighbors are all fawning over these cars, apparently. And it's because the boys have arrived in said cars. And she is like, oh, shit. Just when I thought I had a day off from these hooligans, they are here at my doorstep. And she's just... And to be fair, I get it. Like, I would not be pleased to have school life follow me home on the weekend.
What if they were hot-ass guys?
Well, that would be different. That would be fucking
like
different.
Two twins who are twin-sisting, but also into you.
Oh my god, okay. So,
super hot-ass tree-like dude who's tall and silent. Super smart brain for the operation.
Here for that.
Do you know what I mean? It's like this whole group, and they're just obsessed with singularly you.
Yes. And I'm here for that. I wouldn't mind that had that been my high school life in reality, but that was not the case, believe it or not.
Wow.
I know. Like a fucking shame, to be honest.
Agreed.
But I also didn't talk much and kept to myself, so I did not allow that to happen. But anyways, what was I saying?
So we were talking about, so she was grocery shopping.
So she was grocery shopping. She was not pleased to see this group of very fine young gentlemen greeting her at her door. And she eventually has to invite them in because they brought cakes. And
Honey Senpai specifically brought
really
cakes.
Did. As the sweet tooth of the group, rightfully so. And of course you can't just say, okay, I'll take the cakes and you guys leave. You have to be polite.
Even if you just only want to take the cake. Understood.
Yeah, because that is literally my first thought. I'll take the cake. And thank you, bye-bye. Shut the door and, turn on some Netflix, set the mood, and just, binge watch a show while I binge on some cake. Makes sense to me. But she doesn't do that. She invites them in for tea. And during this process, Tamaki is like, okay, whatever you do, boys, you cannot refer to certain things because it might trigger Haruhi and her commonerness. You can't.
So fucking rude. Like the best of intentions, but so misdirected.
So misdirected. Because he's a fucking idiot.
I mean, we love him for the intention, right?
Like, I adore Tamaki. I really do. Because his intentions are always really innocent and honest. Except for when he calls himself daddy.
Because he's not a real daddy.
He's not. But
I need like Kiyoya to be like daddy, and then would be like daddy.
Daddy. Especially after episode 8 when they were at the beach.
Heard.
Anyways, I won't fall into that right now. But, so, where was I going? I started thinking about the beach scene.
So, Haruhi's dad comes home.
Yes. After tea and cake, they wanted lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to prepare a meal so big for, like 6 mouths or whatever it is, she needs to go grocery shopping again, which, like, fucking rude. She was already at the grocery store. And these hooligans come in and are like, we're hungry.
Right.
And so they have to go grocery shopping again, right?
The pivotal point for me was that Haruhi's dad comes home looking very unconventionally like a dad.
Yes, this is not what we think of a dad to look like.
And considering this was 2006, this was quite progressive for its time, even if they might have used terms and terminology that we wouldn't quite use today so casually.
Right. And it was, it was very forward for the time. He, bless his soul, I think still technically considers himself a man in this situation, but he dresses up as a very feminine character called Ronka. And he, quote unquote, works at a transvestite bar. And we know that there's very much a big scene right now, currently in the year 2023 of our Lord, about drag shows, right? I don't really know if they consider themselves transvestites anymore currently.
Yeah, I don't know what word they would have used, but this is the word that they used in the anime,
yes,
which is why we're using it now.
Yes, and I think even outside of his job, he prefers to dress up as a woman, and he carries himself as a woman, and even uses a voice that's more feminine. And you know what, it's fine, because Haruhi is just like, hey dad, how is work? And
very casual, very accepting,
very casual, and
no
there's
connotation behind it,
right? And so it's kind of this, it's a thing in 2006, and it was very forward for the time, but viewing it through a 2023 lens, it's like, okay, we can deal with it. It's fine. It's not as shocking as it was in 2006, I would say.
Right, but the part that is shocking, regardless of whether this was 15 years ago, 30 years ago, or today, is the fact that your father is potentially talking to the hottest member of your friend group.
Yeah.
Which is what we find out is happening with Haruhi.
Yeah.
Is that Haruhi's dad has been talking with Kiyoya since the very beginning.
Yeah.
Which is like a betrayal of trust, which is like very odd. Like, I don't want you talking to my friends without me around, yet alone the hottest possible. Well,
in our opinion.
Hottest.
In our
right,
opinion.
I was going to say, in my opinion, the most desirable of everyone
He's so
in this
smart.
friend group.
Yes.
without my knowledge, without my
Yes.
permission. Very not okay, Dad. I don't care if you're
Thanks.
dad, your dad, your mom. I don't care who you are.
Right.
Please no.
Please don't. Like, because that's like an invasion of privacy, especially as a
Yes.
teenager.
Yes.
When we
Doesn't
are
matter.
extra, like, defensive and, like, barriers are up for certain parts of our lives. Like, I know as a teenager, you know, I would let my parents in on some things, but some things I kept to myself. Because as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, even 17-year-old, it's like there are things I'm trying to discover about myself that I don't need my parents in on, right? And back then for myself, it was especially very, I wouldn't say personal, but it was still very like a private thing. We had access to the internet back then. Internet was a bigger thing, a bigger leap in technology than it, you know, it is now. Like, the internet has always existed to a lot of people, but for us it was like a big thing when we were teenagers.
Oh, it was in the beginning baby stages.
Yeah.
Sure, it still existed in dial-up form, but like
But it was huge. It
Yeah.
was, and
you either got to be on the phone or you got to be on the internet.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And that's how old we are, folks. We are ancient. And so I didn't tell a lot of things that I explored on the internet. Not that it was dangerous or anything, but, you know, I was talking to people all around the world.
It was just uncharted territory.
It was uncharted territory. And at that time, my parents thought that every single person on the internet was a predator of some sort. And that wasn't the case. So I kept that
It's only like
away.
90% of the case.
Yeah, maybe. And, you know, I guess at like 15, 16-year-olds, like, yeah, that's a fair assumption. But, you know, I kept myself safe overall, but I was definitely a child of the internet. Like, I didn't have a ton of friends, or, you know, in school, or like a huge social life outside of 2 or 3 people. But there was a lot of my social life that was on the internet as well. But I didn't tell my parents that because I didn't need them sitting me down for 2 hours and telling me, like, the dangers of the internet. Because I already knew.
Right.
Already knew, like, okay, technically a person could be saying that they're my age, but they're really, like, 20-something or 30-something, 40-something.
Cognitively, you understand
Yes,
it.
absolutely. And so, you know, I get that in Haruhi's situation, even though she's not like surfing online, she wants to keep some of her life private and to herself. Like, there's a sacred space, a little carved out space for herself that she can deal with stuff on her own. And granted, I wouldn't say that I necessarily should have kept a lot of my internet life a secret, but I knew if I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm talking to even this girl that's like 3 years older and she's my friend, they'd be like, we're gonna like not, because we don't really know where this person is in their life, you know?
And fair as
fair.
a parent.
As a parent, fair.
Looking back on this, as a kid in this particular spot, you don't necessarily agree.
Right.
Because you're like,
Sure.
I know it's safe. I know that I'm smart. I'm not gonna
I'm not gonna be dumb
do
about
all these
this.
things. But then as a parent, I feel like you're like, and maybe you're not, Hannah, but there's still some red flags
Sure.
that aren't worth the benefits of this relationship,
Sure.
right? But you don't really know that until
Right.
you're at a certain age to be able to be at that point to be like,
Yeah. I mean, looking back on it, I'd be like, okay, I was treading, like, not necessarily dangerous waters, but, you know, I definitely opened myself up to maybe more not so good people that could have come in and, like, fucked me up in different sorts of ways.
Right.
But it never happened. I'm still
So
here.
what happened
I'm
was-
still alive.
In which case, though, that you were pretty lucky with how
Yes.
things ended up. Because it could have not ended up
Right.
so well. Which is not to say that, like, Hannah's 14-year-old perception of things is correct. If you're 14 and listening, I hope you're not 14
You know
and
nothing.
listening.
You absolutely know nothing.
If you're 14, please be getting your parents' permission before listening to this podcast. But, like,
Yeah.
literally, when you're a kid, your perception of what you think is okay and appropriate, and even if you're so lucky as to have good discernment and still be making good decisions, I mean, you're still in a vulnerable position
Oh, absolutely.
that you can't really protect. And even as an adult, you can't really fully trust things on the internet, no matter what age you are, yet alone
Yes.
being a minor set free on the internet, especially in today's day and age.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Not 15 plus years ago, even when we're talking
Yes.
about.
And I
which
would
was a different time of the internet.
very different time. Like, not saying that it was like a safe space necessarily.
Right. It was
back
a
then.
different space.
It was different in this, and I think we got lucky in the sense that the internet was just kind of really coming into what it was.
Right.
That we were able to still explore these things without any sort of like missteps being held against us.
Right.
Versus right now, if a teenager ends up, you know, accidentally doing something a little too risque or promiscuous, like that shit is like there forever.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and like that, you know, people
All
can.
the weird shit I did on the internet 16 years ago,
There's no history.
nobody knows about. None of you
No.
guys know. I
No.
dare you.
Don't
Challenge
dare them. They'll do it.
Find it. Because I remember every single risque thing I
Which
did
was
back
like
then
nothing.
that I have logged in the back of my memory.
But only your memory.
And potentially the internet's.
Potentially.
If they can find it. No, I'm just saying.
Yes, yes.
But, like, tracking, the logging of it, it was definitely
It
different.
was different. It was a different time.
The way to cyberbully someone was very different then.
Yes. And I
To
would
track
say
them, it was definitely different.
there wasn't, like back in our day, there wasn't a necessary need to have social media. It was like MySpace was a thing. It was super popular back in our day. And if you had one, great. And technically, yes, you could bully someone on MySpace. But overall, it was kind of like, well, I can just log out and just not pay attention to you and go about my day and be just fine. We had the wonderful mix of internet coming of age shit and technology coming of age shit, and still being able to have like a childhood to outside of that, where you're still kind of running around neighborhoods, doing weird shit with all your neighborhood friends, whatnot. Nowadays, it's...
I don't know. I hope that still happens. Like, I want my kids to be able to run through my neighborhood.
I mean, I hope so too. I don't know. I really don't anymore, just because if you're not on social media, like, do you even exist anymore?
I mean, I hope that my kids don't exist. Sorry, you guys.
Fair.
I suddenly got the hiccups.
Oh boy. We got her a little too schnockered. That's my bad.
We weren't even drinking really, like, that many carbonated things.
No, but
It's just hit me.
sometimes if I drink something that's a little too strong, I'll get the hiccups. It's just I forget to breathe for a hot second, and then it's like, ugh! And then I have the hiccups for 45 minutes. It's fine.
Yeah,
You know
I
what?
do feel like this came out of nowhere.
It really did. We went on a rant.
We've been here for so long before we even
So
started
long.
recording.
Like, you guys, we literally had a almost 2-hour pre-record warm-up.
I was gonna say you've been here for like 3.5 hours.
It's because I missed you, Stephanie. It's been so long since we
Fair,
recorded.
I would miss me too. No, just kidding.
Oh, That's fine.
I would miss me.
Same.
If I wasn't with myself.
That's true. I'm annoyed with myself. It's fine.
I just can't stop it.
It's okay. We'll get through this. Do you need me to talk more? Okay, I will do that. I will talk more. I will fill up the space with my voice of whatever. So, gosh, where were we? Okay, so Tamaki ends up meeting Haruhi's father, all womanized and, coming home from work, which is as the anime said, transvestite bar. And Haruhi's father finds them in a pretty precarious and salacious position because apparently...
a series of accidents, right?
Yes.
This happens.
Because apparently there was just a random banana peel that was on the floor that Tamaki slips on.
It does perpetually happen in this anime.
Very
banana
much
peels.
so. Very much so.
Anything that would otherwise be unexplained is explained by banana peel.
So, like, if anything weird happens in your life, it's because of a banana peel.
Banana peel.
It makes the most sense, apparently.
Well, yeah.
I guess. Even though, like, there was no bananas had during the cake and tea.
Truth.
part.
We have never once seen Haruhi chow down on a banana.
It's true. Just strawberries, apparently. So, because Tamaki slips on said banana, he is once again in the wonderful position of being on top.
Wow. You did that on purpose.
I totally did. It's fine. Because that's all I can think about right now is positions.
He was on top of her.
On top of her.
In the middle of, for all intents and purposes, their living room.
Yes. And he just is just on top of her because, quote unquote, slip and oops, haha. And it's a very typical thing in these rom-com types of things. And so that's when Haruhi's dad walks in and sees this really not so good look of Haruhi on the floor, on her back, Tamaki on top of her, and he's like, oh no, this is not going to happen, not in my house. And he comes in and he takes Tamaki and throws him against the wall. And, like, with such force that Tamaki cracks the wall. Like, there's an indent of his body and his face. And Haruhi is like, oh, that he was thrown really far.
Ouchies.
Ouchie. Like, the wall cracked. Oops. Which would technically kill a person, but not in anime.
Not Tamaki.
Not Tamaki, that poor boy with the thick head.
Finally came in handy.
For once. And that is not necessarily the best first impression. But here we are because of this first impression with Haruhi's dad, Ronka, which is his stage name, but that's what we're going to call him from now on because it's easy and we're buzzed.
I was going to say also because that's what he's decided he is.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So that's fair.
Yeah.
Whatever you...
So we're going with that.
Whatever name you want.
But we are going to be using he pronouns because that's still what Haruhi considers.
Right. And she keeps saying dad and referring to
him
dad as him.
So on. And so... because of this gaffe, we see that Tamaki is in the closet and quote unquote making mushrooms, which is just kind of a really dramatic way of saying that Tamaki is really I wouldn't say depressed, but really sad and really just kind of pouting is probably the best way to go about it. He's pouting because that's not really how he wanted things to go. And even Haruhi is like, quit making mushrooms in my closet. Please stop doing that.
Mushrooms.
But he continues to do that.
Yeah, the mushrooms were the thing. They were the theme of this episode, really.
So many mushrooms. Mm-hmm. Those nice thick heads. Mm-hmm. Anyways. Anyways, she's like had enough of all this shenanigans. He's like, Haruhi's just like, you know what? All of you, my dad, all of the host club, you guys stay here. Mm-hmm. I need to go to the grocery store again because I need to get enough supplies to make lunch for all these unexpected mouths to feed.
Ooh.
I know, you gotta stuff those mouths.
Sexy.
Make them shut up, baby.
If only the mushrooms were thick enough.
Yeah.
Meaty
really
enough.
thick,
Girthy enough.
Girthy enough, yes.
Oh, they had enough oomph to them.
Yeah. Just stuff it right in.
Everybody loves a good stuffed mushroom.
Same. Me too. It's my favorite.
Yeah. So this is not her case. She has to go to the store.
She does. She has to go to the store. She's upset with everyone because she's just enough, like,
obviously.
Had enough. Which, fair, because Ronka, her dad, is very much similar in personality to Tamaki. And everyone in the host club is like, oh yeah, that makes sense as to why she can handle Tamaki. Because basically he's a carbon copy of her dad. And
just a little more flamboyant.
A little bit more. Just a little.
Like, give it a few years.
Yeah. Practically the same person when you look at them.
Right.
You know? And so they're sad that they don't get to go to the quote-unquote commoners supermarket, which
they could go to if they ever wanted to,
if they
right?
really wanted to,
like,
yes.
Nobody is standing in front of, like, Japan Winco being like, you can't come in unless you make under,
like,
I don't know,
50,000. I don't know. What's
Japan dollars?
Sure.
What are they called? I don't
even
know.
Yen.
I swear I'm half Japanese.
And I'm just white. It's fine. I have no culture. It's okay.
Like this doesn't exist. They could go if they wanted to. They're just not.
No, but they're,
which is fine. It's for
Haruhi.
The plot of the anime.
Yes, because without it, like, there would be no interesting episodes.
Right. Understood.
So, afterwards, after Haruhi is like, I'm going by myself. You guys are done. Stay here. Ronka is like, you guys want to play a game? And they're like, go on. And she's like, the game is we're stalking Haruhi as she goes to the store. And, you know, I get it because there's like some backstory to it that when she was 6, she would go to the store and do grocery shopping to kind of fulfill the role that her mom has left her, more or less, because her mom passed away, you know, like typical sad anime shit. Her mom passed away, and so she's like, I must take the burden of being my mom.
Right.
And which, if I was Ronka, I would be like, no, you're my child. You need to have a childhood, and not just play the role of an adult or, you know, like technically stepping in to fulfill the position of my wife, quote unquote. Aside from all the sexual stuff. It's fine, I won't go there. But, you know, to like cook, clean, grocery shop at 6 years old. Like, that's a lot. But she did. She fulfilled that role. And
well, of course. Yeah. But also, like, I feel like in that day and age, she felt a sense of duty to do it, an obligation to do it.
Yes, she did.
While in the anime, we see, like, this comedic, like, the host club is distraught because they want to go to the commoner's grocery store and, like, I'm so sad.
So sad.
And then, like, Haruhi's dad giving the, like, zinger of, like, you're the host club's bumbling leader, right?
Yeah.
Like, to Tamaki. And then it just kind of, like, really ends on this comedic element, even though, like, you're talking about, like, there's, like, these deeper elements to it that are happening.
Yes.
Which we can acknowledge, which is relatable for this anime, which seems very fun and lighthearted. But there's definitely those aspects of it that are, like, that hit closer to home.
Yeah.
That give you that stuff to think about where you're like, wow. It's a little bit more serious. It's a little bit deeper.
A little bit.
Than just this, like, anime where they're, like, singing about, like,
everything
whatever.
is fine.
Yeah.
Everything is awesome.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what makes this such an enjoyable, delightable anime.
It is. Like, I honestly enjoy this episode specifically because there is that contrast of, like, oh, the really rich and elite would, or the elite, I don't know how to say it. I don't know. Hook it on phonics were good for me. I don't like just the comparison of maybe how the well-off and the rich would maybe view us, and then, like, actually stepping in to the daily life of Haruhi and being like, okay, it's really not as that much of a gap as we thought. And
Right.
really, they're just living their life. They come from quote-unquote humble backgrounds, but really, like, they're comfortable. They're living their life. They're doing their thing. And really, it's the rich that are super lucky and super, well off to have, at least 5 people waiting on them hand and foot. And, and just kind of seeing where Haruhi is with everything. Like, she embraced filling in the gap that her mom left when she passed away, and still taking as much care as she could for her dad while her dad
Pursued unconventional work.
Yes.
To make ends meet.
Yes.
I feel like is the best way we could put that.
Yes.
Because especially considering this was that many years ago, it was unconventional, especially for that time.
It was shocking and scandalous, that's for sure.
Like, we're watching it now kind of like, okay.
Okay,
like,
sure.
It's a little offensive the way you're talking about the words, but like, okay.
Like, okay, like, this is nothing, really.
Right. But really, that many years ago in Japan, this was a different scenario.
It's very forward,
which we're acknowledging.
Yes, and I loved the relationship that Haruhi and her father did have, just because he does have to fulfill that role of not only a father, but maybe a mother as well. And he doesn't quite maybe fulfill that motherly role, but he does truly love his daughter.
Oh, yeah.
And wants the best for her, and still is very protective of her. And I enjoy seeing that those roles play out. And I love to see just how much Ranka is more than willing to throw someone against the wall in order to protect his daughter. You know, so it was a good insight in Haruhi's life and where she comes from and why she's so even-keeled, even though she's been through a lot in her childhood.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I guess technically that's really it for the episode. Tamaki gets to see how Haruhi lives. Haruhi gets to be annoyed on her day off from school. Tamaki
The one day we could have seen her study, she wasn't studying.
Right.
She was just living her same life, being annoyed by the host club.
Yep, it doesn't
And
stop.
in return, the host club was being invasive of her personal life.
Yep.
I mean, same formula.
Yes.
Different day.
Yes. I mean, it is kind of, in a way, a throwback to the twins episode where they pretended to fight each other in order for Haruhi to give in and say, okay, fine, you can see my house, you can visit, you know. And so now she's like, oh shit, I guess I'm obligated since they're here, and I said I would do that if they would stop fighting. And, you know, so they got their way. All these rich boys got their way. But yeah, that's basically the end of the episode, and everything is kind of tied up in a little bow where Tamaki and Ranka are basically the same person, and Ranka is just like, I know who my enemy is now, and it's Tamaki. And Tamaki's like, oh no, the girl that I love.
No, that's, of course. I
Your
mean,
father
this is a
hates
very light-hearted anime.
Yes.
There's no
It was cute.
real drama here.
No, there was definitely no, like, super big
Right.
plot point that was moved, but I can appreciate for what it was, right?
Yeah.
You know, protective
Very fun.
single father.
Very enjoyable episode. A little bit more understanding for Haruhi's character.
A
where
little
she's coming
bit.
from.
Yeah.
And just seeing the overall host club just kind of grow their bond together a little bit more. I feel like is really what this episode was.
And I'm here for it.
Yeah, same.
What even did the host club do without Haruhi?
Yeah, I don't know. The episodes before Haruhi must have been so boring. That's why we don't see them.
Exactly. So I guess that's it.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Until episode 11.
Oh gosh, I can't believe it. Double digits.
Baka bye!